Welcome back. You are on the Q with Q, and we're back for another episode of Q the Mind. I just have to start out by thanking all my supporters, man. The first week we jumped off really quick, over 30 subscribers within the first few days. We're hitting over 2,000 views in the first week. And so I just want to really just send my heartfelt gratitude. This takes a lot of work. And so when you feel that support coming in, when you feel folks buying into the concept, it really helps push the work forward. It's really a motivating factor. So first, I just want to start by thanking everybody that has been a huge support so far. Continue to subscribe if you have not. Please hit the notifications so that way when the shorts hit in the morning, those shorts are there so you can stay caught up with what's coming next. And so we're just going to start off with the recap of last week's episode. That one was why Q the Mind even exists. And so what we did was just kind of dive into the foundation of what you can expect for this podcast. We started off with just talking about, how this came about. And then I dove into some of the influences that has inspired this podcast. So, we talked about things from a scriptural lens. I talked about my mom. We talked about Robert Greene. And we talked about the POS model, which is something that I created, a framework that I have used within my business, Hybrid Focus Consulting. And so we really laid the groundwork there. So if you have not had an opportunity to hear episode 1, I would strongly encourage going back and checking it out prior to listening to this episode, because it's really going to set the foundation for what you're going to receive today. After we set that foundation, dove just a little bit more into what I call the 4F formula. The 4F formula is what we're really going to use to kind of dissect, if you will, the information that I'm going to be giving you. So the 4F formula looks at fact, what is undeniably true. It looks at fluency, what deeper understanding do we need to develop? And then it looks at function, how do we apply that learning? And then lastly, freedom, what internally does this lock? Whenever we learn something and we're able to apply that learning, it provides clarity. And so that freedom piece is really like identifying what was I able to unlock as a result of this learning. So after we went through that, we just kind of looked at what that scriptural lens was. Last week, if I'm not mistaken, it was Proverbs. And so with all thy getting, get an understanding, wisdom being that principal thing. And then the Robert Greene was just talking about integrating that information, a concept that came from his book Mastery. And then the POS model, it just encompassed everything on that model. And so we dove in there and it was a good episode. It was a good grounding episode. A lot of good feedback from that. And so today we are talking about the cost of cheating the pace, right? The cost of cheating the pace. And so as always, I'm going to start you off with just a story of my experience. And so I live in the far west suburbs of Chicago, and I take a very long commute into the city on days that I need to be in the office. And so I work in the Goose Island area. And so when I'm taking that drive in, I have the things that just kind of keep me grounded, keep me busy. But, one thing that happened in a recent trip, there was a lady in a CX-9, Mazda CX-9. And I mean, when I tell you this lady is just making extreme lane changes. So to give context, if you know the Chicagoland area, I take the tollway 88 into the city. From 88, I pick up 290. If I have my son with me or not, I'm dropping him off at school in the Oak Park area, right off of Harlem, between Harlem and Austin. And then I continue on into the Goose Island area, which takes me through the loop. So this particular morning, I'm hopping on Adiola Road, if you know where that is, off of 88. And same thing. It's a rhythm for me. I get all the way over into that left lane, and I, for the most part, 85 to 90% of the ride will just chill in that left lane. And so I'm noticing this lady, she's killing the gas, man. And she's flying ahead, she's weaving and bobbing throughout lanes. And I'm watching her and I'm just like, you're going nowhere fast. And sure enough, at least 6 to 7 times across all of these different lane changes, she'll fly ahead. And that left lane, man, it's a consistent pace. It's very consistent and it just rides. And before you know it, what happens? She gets hit by something and it slows her down and she falls all the way back behind. And then again, here she comes, just flying up. And, I was watching it. And, if at one point I lost track of her. Once you hit that 88 to 290 merger, you have an option of getting off on Mannheim Road, or you can continue on throughout the expressway. So she takes the Mannheim option. So I'm like, oh, well, her journey has come to the end, all of that. And here we are at the same space. And so believe it or not, we get to the point where the Mannheim exit merges back onto 290. Guess who was coming behind me? Here she comes again. And I'm like, oh, you took the Mannheim exit as what you thought would be a shortcut. But here we are. You're still behind. And so here I am still in that left lane, steady, unbothered, just cruising right along. And by the time I get to Harlem on my exit, she's still behind me. And so, I bring that story to you because this can apply to a lot of us from a life sense. And even after I wrote this particular episode, it kind of brought me back each day. I'm like, man, I wonder if I'm going to see any more of this behavior. And sure enough, I'm on Harlem going south one day, headed towards the North Riverside Mall area. And a worker in a Sunrun van is flying past me. And he has ladders on the top of his van. And I'm just like, man, slow down. And so he flies past me. He gets all the way. He beats me to the light. I get stopped by a light right on 16th. And he makes it all the way to Cermak. He goes through. He misses the left turn at Cermak, goes through the light, makes a U-turn at the K&G factory, if you know the area, to make a right turn. Now, mind you, I've caught up. I'm at the left turn light. And it just so happens there's two cars that are in front of him not making that right turn. I ended up making my left turn before he was able to make the right turn, essentially still beating you after you did all of that. So how is this going to ground us in today's episode? You can't cheat the pace. You cannot cheat the pace. You have to make a consistent effort to move forward at a rhythm that suits you. When we try to beat the pace, what you'll find is the same way that the CX-9 lady in the Mazda is speeding up, slowing down, swerving. Like, what is that doing ultimately to your brakes? What is it doing to your gas, your fuel efficiency, right? And so when you think about that, that very same thing is equivalent to burnout in many cases. And us, essentially being halted by behaviors that we did not anticipate was something that is going to take us out in the long run. It's not sustainable, right? And so what we're going to do is we're going to take this idea of trying to cheat the pace and get ahead. I mean, I'm sure people who sit in traffic all the time, you see the people who fly up the side, with their hazards on, as if like, hey, eventually a state trooper is going to catch you. And when they do, it's going to set you further back, and it's going to show you that behavior is ultimately not sustainable. And so what can we identify about pace that is undeniably true? And so when you think about it, we live in a culture that it celebrates fast results, accelerating without necessarily knowing where you're going, fast money, fast recognition. People pay for followers that won't even interact with them. But why? Because they want this illusion of success. The whole idea of how social media is built is to continue to push on that dopamine. And so there are algorithms that are set to try to keep you from getting out. And so as a result, we have those screen time monitors, hey, maybe time to take a break. But the idea is to keep you engaging in fast satisfaction. And so we can carry that over into our business habits. And so when you think about it, speed without rhythm does not create progress. It only creates burnout. And so like that driver that we're talking about, if we believe that constant movement equals advancement, then we're going to find out that movement without mastery just going to create burnout. And so you'll wear your brakes down, you'll overheat your engine, and still you're not going to arrive as soon as that person who found that left lane and maintained that consistent pace. So that's fact. That's what's undeniably true about this situation. And we have some data that I pulled up. I'm like, you know what? Let me actually go get some data about this. Did you know? And you can Google this. For people who switch lanes in traffic more than 3 times in a 60-second span, increases their chance of getting into an accident by 33%. And they also only save an additional 2% on time and they burn 10 to 40% more gas based on how many times they're switching lanes. So the data is irrefutable. You're going nowhere fast and you're creating more burnout as a result. So, fluency. What deeper understanding do we need to develop here? Pace isn't about just slowing down. It's about sustainability. So when we try to cheat the process, we trade peace for pressure. The constant switching lanes in business, relationships, or even purpose, it just shows that there is a lack of trust in timing. Timing is very important. And so we're actually going to get into that when we look at the scriptural lens. But the law of attraction states that we attract what we put out. If we force a pace that's not sustainable, guess what? Our results won't be sustainable either. And so, when you know where you're headed, you don't need to rush. You just need that rhythm. And it reminds me, when you think about rhythm, on social media from time to time, you'll see that creators, they'll take videos of men dancing, like either in the Middle East or European culture. And they have like these line dances and they'll match it up to hip hop music, right? And so you'll see these videos of Middle Eastern or Arab guys or whatever, Indian even. I've seen them with Indian weddings where like you'll see the guys doing this line dance and then you'll hear a Future song on top of it, and it's kind of funny because it's like they're not dancing this real time, but guess what? The rhythm syncs up, right? The whatever beat that they're dancing to matches up with the rhythm of whatever song that it attaches itself to. So like when you think about producers, they use a metronome based on the BPM to help them time when they're actually building that music. A BPM is beats per minute. And so what is your BPM? What rhythm are you currently at? Some of us may be at 85 beats per minute, which is a little bit of a slower pace, but some of us may be at 120 beats per minute, which now you're getting into that rave. You're getting into that rave type music, right? And so literally or metaphorically speaking, you have to find your beat per minute. You have to find that rhythm for you that works based on where you are. When you try to align yourself with somebody else's pace, you're not going to win. Okay. And so function. Let's move into the third F now. How do we apply this understanding? So personal application. Stop overcorrecting. If you're constantly reacting, speeding up, slowing down, shifting directions, you're draining your emotional gas tank. Instead, pick your lane. Depending on where you are, sometimes like I usually ride in that left lane, but every once in a while, like I kind of be off to that third lane in the right. Like if I'm not in a rush, if the traffic is moving faster than I would like, if it's raining outside and, I'm like a little bit more particular about how I'm going to drive in that weather, today I might just choose to be in that lane. That might mean me pulling my BPM or pulling my speed back a little bit, but I'm okay with that. I've made a decision that that's where I'm at in this current moment, based on where I am, based on this project, based on my business experience. And I'm picking my lane and I'm defining the season that I'm in, right? The next one is check your mirrors. Reflect weekly. Are your habits aligned with your goal? So when you think about what your goals are, hey, what speed probably should I start off at in order to meet this? Because if I move at it too fast, I don't want to burn out. This is a long, far off goal. Maybe it's a goal that you can accomplish within a few days. Okay, hop over in that left lane, speed up. You could probably get that done. But identify your lane and then check your mirrors. Lastly, anticipate and ease into your flow. Trust that consistency is going to compound more than chaos will. Consistency always gets you that compound interest. Chaos will not. And you might hit the jackpot. It's not to say that the CX-9 lady, there were times when she got pretty far ahead. If she would have jumped in that left lane, she would have beat me. But she continued pushing at that pace that was not sustainable. What happened? She ended up getting caught by a truck. Boom, fall all the way behind. And so there are times to that point. There are times when even being in the left lane, you might need to get over. There's times when, bigger vehicles get in front of me. You're obscuring my view, sir. I can't see what's happening in front of you. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to hop over into that next lane so that way I can have a further distance. Sometimes it's better to drop 5 miles per hour and be able to see further ahead up the road than to maintain that speed. And if this guy stops really quick, boom, it could cause that accident, right? And so really figuring out what season you're in and picking that lane is going to be very, very important. Then we're going to go into the freedom piece. What does this unlock internally. When you learn to pace yourself, you reclaim peace. You stop comparing lanes and start mastering your own. Freedom is found in rhythm, not reaction. Because once the traffic clears, the person who kept the pace will always move forward with clarity, calm, and confidence. Okay. And so those are our 4 F's. So, going back to that fact piece, moving fast is always going to burn you out. What deeper understanding do we need to gain here is that, hey, switching these lanes is not sustainable, right? And so once you realize that, it'll help you plan better, which then you pick your lane for function. You check your mirrors and you anticipate and ease into the flow. And then lastly, that freedom part is just learning, once you figure out what your pace is, it's like, yo, I know exactly when I'm going to get here. I know exactly what steps I need to take. You'll be able to see ahead of time when it's time to merge into another lane and maybe speed up or slow down. And so this is very, very important. So now what we want to do is go ahead and connect our scriptural lens, our Robert Greene concept, and our POS model concept. So for scripture, today is going to be Ecclesiastes 9 and 11. I returned and saw under the sun that the race is not to the swift, nor the battle to the strong, neither yet bread to the wise, nor yet riches to man of understanding, nor yet favor to man of skill, but time and chance happen to them all. And so this verse reminds us that life's victories, they're not always about how fast you are, how strong you are, how sharp you are, what your network looks like, how much money you got in your bag, right? But it's about timing and endurance. We've seen people who've had lots of money fumble the bag. We've seen people who are super fast lose. But when you align with the right pace, God's timing is going to cover what your striving will not be able to cover. He's going to always give you that awareness. Okay, so that's our scripture lens. Now let's look at our Robert Greene concept. This one is going to come from the 48 laws of power. Law 29, plan all the way to the end. Rushing through stages blinds you to strategy. Patience is not weakness. The Bible even talk about that, but that's not for this episode. But patience is not weakness. It's control. Like when you're patient, you have a better sense of control than someone who is rushing because you're gathering the information that you need. And so power lies in maintaining pace and not forcing progress. Forcing progress will never work. And so from a positive affirmation of self model alignment, this one is going to touch more on that social emotional learning and that health piece. Social emotional learning because you're building emotional intelligence. You're learning not to be reactive, but be more responsive to what your needs are in that particular moment. And recognizing how impatience and anxiety and control can wear us down. Just like aggressive drivers can wear their car down, it teaches help through emotional pacing, through energy, management, and sustainable rhythm. Okay, so you're getting emotionally intelligent as well as you're keeping yourself from burnout, which will allow you to be able to focus better, and it'll also help your energy. So, it's a long topic, boy, I tell you. But our closing reflection, you can have power, talent, and ability, but without pace, you can misuse them all. Think about that. You can have all the talent in the world. You can have all the ability in the world. You could be the strongest. But if you are not mastering pace, you can abuse it, just like anything else. So, pace is purpose in motion. Power is only sustainable when it's properly timed. So ask yourself this week, where are you trying to cheat the pace? Where? Is it at work? Is it in your home life? Is it in your fitness journey? Right? Is it in your diet journey? Is it in your spiritual journey? Is it an emotional thing that you're going through, right? Where are you trying to cheat the pace and get out of doing the work that will cause you to be more consistent? And what peace might you find if you simply just stayed in your lane? Pick the lane that you're in right now. It could be the right lane. You might be at the speed limit. You might be at 55, which is totally fine. It is okay. But eventually you'll get to a place where you're like, you know what? I can handle a little bit more speed. Let me hop over a lane or two. Right. And so, because the one who flows and not forces always will arrive fulfilled. It will not drain you. Take it from a person who drives practically an hour each way from home. I've had to learn over the years, like, hey, I got to make this ride the best ride that it can be. I found my pace. I don't complain about like these long drives anymore. My wife from time to time may hear like, "Woo, man, I'm tired of being in this car," but it's not something that is coming from a place of burnout, right? It's just like, hey, I'm ready to be at home and sit down. But I utilize that time to be able to suit me the way that I needed to. So, with that being said, today's topic was the cost of cheating the pace. I hope that you all found this helpful. We're gonna keep going deeper. Like this is episode 2, but we have a lot of topics that are gonna tie in to these things. And as time goes on, you'll start to see that some of these episodes make connections, right? And so the cost of cheating the pace can hurt you more than you know. So my advice today is like, hey, pick your lane, check your mirrors, reflect weekly, and then lastly, adapt as you need. It may mean jumping all the way over to the right. It may jumping all over to the left. The last thing that we do want to talk about is just what that business application, the personal application is that picking your lane, but the business application is teams and founders lose power when they confuse activity with progress. And one of the biggest things that I see from founders and leaders that I work with is they do a lot of stuff, but how is that stuff aligned to your mission? Like, is it actually driving your mission forward, or is it just busy work? And so build rhythms, not just sprints. Honor the pace that keeps your people energized. Like, that is another thing. Depending on how big your team is, your people will tell you where you are. And then lastly, focus on sustainable velocity, not emotional burnout. And so that is your business application. This was a fun topic to write because boy, you should see me in the car sometime. I'll be looking at people. I'm like, you tripping. Like, what are you doing? And I just have to remind myself, hey, they cheating the pace. That's going to be on them. But hey, that was today's episode. Thank you for joining episode 2. We will be back next week with episode 3 and another exciting topic. As always, if you enjoyed this, please click subscribe. Also turn on the notifications so you know when everything drops. And then lastly, comment, tell me, give me some feedback. And thank you for those who helped me out with a couple of little technical things. Last week, I'm learning like the audio setup and making sure everything is crisp. So hopefully the volume this week is a lot more crisp. The audio is clear. And thanks again. And we will see you. You are on the Q with Q the Mind. See you next week.